We're live? Okay, this meeting is being digitally recorded. Is there anyone here for open session? That's why I said yes.
That's easy. Okay, great. All right, so the first item we're going to go to is the budget and warrant discussion. And if I could have Eric Hinchip and David Eisenthal come on up and join us.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, how you doing? Good, how are you?
So the budget in front of you has a couple of changes that I just want to highlight. The first one is that the Rutland Dispatch assessment went down $11,000. The DPW wages is going down about $8,800 because we're going to delay the hiring of an employee until October. And then we removed the library cleaning service for $2,000. That eliminates your operational budget subsidy. So the only subsidy at this point now is just the capital items, which is what you had requested at the last meeting. The other item that was removed was the trim painting at the school for $20,000. Then, actually, that is on. What's removed is the flooring. That's going to be in their budget instead.
Did we send a thank you note to the state 911?
That's still being worked out.
Okay.
So those are the current changes. And this is the only change I can see right now at this point would be Quabbin coming in at a different number.
Okay, so would you mind, just because we've done it the last 2 or 3 times
Yeah.
we've done this, if you could just run us through this first page?
Sure.
And so that we can just make sense of both sides of the sheet and we understand it?
Okay, so on the left-hand side is your revenue. There's no other changes. Snow and ice is still at $67,000. The governor's budget has stayed the same. Your free cash is the same. And your articles are also the same. I haven't heard back from the transfer to Gmail, so that's actually going to stay right there until we find out about that.
Could you explain again, perhaps, the overlay surplus?
So the overlay surplus, they had an additional amount of money in their account, and we requested $50,000 from that. I think in prior year, last year, it was $85,000 that they requested, or 2 years ago, it was $85,000. So this year is the $50,000 that we're requesting.
Who requested from where?
I requested from the Board of Assessors.
When are we going to have their yay or nay?
We already got there, okay.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Okay.
So out of that total revenue of 9,177,499, the only remaining, that we know of, number that may toggle is the school assessment.
For the 9177?
Yes.
That's revenue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The only thing that may change, your snow and ice deficit is really at around 66,000, so that may just go down, but just a fraction.
So for our operating budget, the only potential change?
Quabbin.
is Quabbin. And that's at what percentage you?
I put it in at 4.4 based on what Mark had told us 2 meetings ago.
Has there been any, I mean, that was,
I haven't heard anything else since.
okay. Or about time frame on,
No, we should have it pretty soon, but it's usually right at the last minute.
okay, and so just as we work our way down there from Gmail to senior tax work-off to the fiscal year 18 capital articles that we look over on our right.
Yep. And then if you see the cash capital, you'll see that the flooring for Quabbin has been removed. So it's just the exterior trim painting. For them, the police cruiser and the DPW sweeper is in there for cash capital.
Are we missing a truck also?
The truck for DPW is now going to be a borrowing item.
Okay.
And then the town center
The
design.
town center is another issue, if you want to do it by stabilization, or you could do it as a borrowing item.
Okay,
Eric will talk about that
sounds good.
with David. So now if you go to the next box, your total revenue is the $9,177,000. Your operating budget is the $8,814,000. Your capital cash, your transfer to stabilization, and your articles, total appropriations is $9,177,498.
Okay,
Did you want to go through the line items
Nope.
as well?
anyone else? All right.
Okay, you're up, Eric.
So a good segue to the capital budget. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And did you guys get this? It's like two-sided. Yeah, great.
I can hand them out to-
Okay.
Did anybody receive this?
Okay, so, we'll start at the top, and, whatever's on this page is reflected in this budget also, so, they're in sync with each other.
So just starting off, where do we get the 345, 612 when we look over to our previous sheet?
Good question. All right, so if you go to the previous sheet, the front page, and you go to the bottom right-hand corner where it says free cash uses,
Yes.
so the 345, 612 is the capital budget, 106, 790, and those are items that we're gonna pay, go right from free cash and appropriate the money for that. And
Yep.
right now, you guys have the police cruiser, the Hubbardston school painting for 20,000, and then refurbishing the Elgin Street sweeper for 50. So that's light shaded, so that's basically, and then in addition to that, there's gonna be $238,000 moved into the capital stabilization fund. And right now, the balance is $145,000, so by adding $238,000, that'll augment that fund. And we could talk about that later, but that's kind of like putting some money aside for future capital.
And so those two total 345, 612.
That's correct. Yep.
And then as it relates to the 638, 442 that we have?
Oh, yeah, as it relates to the 638, 440, yeah, that does relate. So those are those two. And then the other uses of free cash are going to be the $17,100 of free cash that's going to be used for the senior work-off program and that Gmail,
Yep.
2,100.
Yep.
And then $275,000 is being used to fund the debt service, and that's it. So that's the whole amount, the 645.
Okay, pretty clean.
Okay, great. All right. So with that said, basically we have the 345 from free cash, and in order to make this work, in order to fund, you'll notice I've shaded in dark 3 items. One is the fire engine, which is Article 13 at the town meeting. And you have the Main Street roadwork engineering, which is $65,000. I think that's what you were just mentioning.
It was.
So we have this as a borrowing, yep. And then we have the 6-wheel dump truck with the plow for $150,000. So we don't have obviously enough free cash or available funds to pay those for with cash. But the thought was that we would borrow those funds. And if you turn the page, if you can turn the page here, let's see. So basically what this shows is our current debt service. The current debt service in the budget right now is $276,000. In future years, it's going to go down, as you can see. It goes down to $217 in FY19.
Can I just stop right for a second?
Sure.
So that 276, 252 that we see there, we see the operating debt service of 275, 730 on the previous sheet there. Is that no correlation? That's just a close number?
It just closed. It was correlated, but the debt budget had to go up. So some of that debt budget's like $1,000 of that debt budget's getting paid for by the regular taxes, like raise and appropriate.
Okay.
Yep. So that's so the idea is like town meeting has to decide, like, if we're going to borrow $650,000. There's 2 questions about how is it going to affect like the bottom line, and obviously it's not going to affect next year's budget at all because you're going to borrow it next year. The first payment's not going to be due until FY 2019, and the reason I have this set up is to show that the town will have a capacity to pay off that debt service. And so what we did is the town brought in their financial advisor. This is David Eisenthal. He works for Unibank. He's the town's fiscal advisor. And he works with the treasurer, Kristen Knoll, on all borrowing issues. So we figured if there was any questions in particular with the borrowing or different things, that David would be here to answer any questions.
Okay.
So basically, just like in summary quick, we have, real quick summary, we have 3 things happening in the capital budget that's being proposed. Transfer to capital stabilization fund of $238,000, which is good for the future, so in future years you can draw that money if you need it. We have 3 capital projects that are being funded with free cash, which is the police cruiser, the Hubbardston school painting, and the Elgin Street sweeper. So that's all within free cash. And then there's 3 borrowing articles.
And let me stop you right there. So, and at that point, at free cash would be the 238, 822, which would be transferred to capital stabilization.
That's correct. That's correct.
Which we're not proposing to use for any of these 3 dark shaded items.
Yes, because the thought is if we put it to capital stabilization, then in future years, maybe if the debt service does get high, it gives the town some flexibility in the future, to draw it out.
Okay.
And so that's it. And so I know everybody has to make a decision whether or not that you have to make a decision on the budget, obviously, because that's going to be one article, but you have 3 borrowing articles that you have to consider. So I just wanted everybody, and Rayanne wanted everybody to go in with the eyes wide open.
So why on page 2, so the graph, where do those numbers come from? I understand where the first number comes from.
Yeah.
But the next 4, where do they come from?
Oh, that comes from, the treasurer has a debt service schedule, like all her debt is scheduled out.
Yep.
The existing debt that the town's borrowed, there's payments, and they go down over the course of the years as things get paid off. So that number came from the treasurer's debt service.
So how does that factor in any of the borrowing that we're proposing here?
Well, what it does is, like, say if, basically, the town theoretically is gonna have less debt payments to make in future years, and
Yep.
it doesn't have to borrow any more money. So theoretically, they could use some of that money to pay for the new debt that's being issued.
Part of the normal operating
Yeah,
budget?
exactly.
Mr. Chairman, this debt at this point is all from the bond issue that Kristen did 2 years ago. And this was done for several projects that the town undertook in the year or 2 leading up to 2015. And because of the nature of the project, some of them were very short
The roads?
amortizations.
Roads as well.
Some of them were much I think the roads were actually among the longer of the pieces.
Yep.
But there were some very short pieces that are getting paid off much more quickly, and it's this sort of roll-off of debt that you're seeing here in FY19.
Like
And
one of the fire trucks, I think, right, was coming off that?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
And I think Eric has crafted kind of an approach here that would have you try to target the current level of debt service so that the impact of this capital, at least the goal would be to have the impact of this capital be budget neutral. So that's, and part of what we will do, what we will assist Kristen and Eric in doing is to try to meet this future debt service capacity. Now, whether the town stays at this let's call it $275,000 in all future years, that's a philosophical discussion that you and the Finance Committee and town meeting would have. But this is a very useful tool for you to use to look at trying to keep things very budget neutral for the current moment.
Which is conservative and what we need to do as, being responsible with the way things are going around here. How much input have you had on this?
As far as this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I worked with Eric on
She gave
it.
you all the numbers, the budgets, the warrant articles, absolutely.
Okay, so how we have another draft copy of the warrant on here,
Yes.
right? So, not to really jump around, I guess, but how are we framing these Article 13, 16, and 15 on
They're all going to be a borrowing item.
borrowing
I
item?
know that there was a question with the 65,000 of whether you wanted to do it as a transfer to from stabilization.
Yep.
And that's certainly a decision you can make.
And I could just add something. Right now, currently you have like $431,000 in your regular stabilization fund. And I think when I looked at your town meeting warrant, you're gonna add another $16,000 to it
Yes.
from old articles, so that's a good thing. And right now, there's $135,000 in your municipal capital stabilization fund. Then you were gonna add $238,000 to that. So, I mean, that's gonna be over $800,000 in reserves, and that's pretty, as a percentage of your budget. I mean, so 10% of your budget's, 900,000. So you'll have like 8 to 9% in reserves.
Which is pretty healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm getting at, I'm just speaking now to this Main Street roadwork engineering, 65,000. Last time we met, we talked about, I don't think you were here, were you?
No.
Anyway, the momentum, we are now listed as a tip project for the town center. It's sort of happened, but to go to the next step is we need to go to get 25% design, which involves some additional money.
Which is the 65.
Which is the 65,000. So what we talked about at the last meeting is, you know what, our stabilization is our savings. Why not? Because this is some momentum. It's a very high-profile project that I think a lot of people would be behind. Why don't we just go into savings and say, look, this is something we want to do. We've got momentum behind it, and sort of guarantee that it continues on. So I'd still be an advocate in doing that, I think.
Okay, I mean, the article that you have on the warrant with you right now, stand corrected, is to transfer from stabilization,
Yep.
the 65,000.
Yeah, and I think it's broadly worded, so you can do either way. It's in the motion. I think it says raise, appropriate, or transfer for available funds, or borrow. So at town meeting, whatever the motion says, that's what's going to carry.
Sure, and then we can sort of, if there are questions at town meeting, we can explain what our plans are.
Exactly. And this is the bulk of it. This is the most expensive piece.
Yep.
Because the other two sections are under 30,000, the next two phases.
Right,
So,
right, which is part of the explanation too. It'd be good to probably lead off with that. Okay. That's pretty clear to me.
did you want to say why we review the warrant as well?
Oh.
Just in case there's any issues?
What do you want me to do? Go through the...
We were just going to go through the warrant again.
Oh, sure.
If you wanted to stay, in case there's any other further questions.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the special town meeting warrant, start with that?
Yes, so the warrant that I sent to you, Susan, we've actually removed Articles 3 and 4. They're not needed.
Okay,
So I think you have a fresh copy now.
okay.
So Article 1 is a CPA article, and Article 2 is also a CPA article for town meeting. So those are the only articles for that one.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so in the annual town warrant, the first couple of sections. So Article 5, Bob Hayes is requesting some word changing so that he can, instead of the EMTs getting reimbursed after the fact, this will actually fund their process while they're going through training. Other towns do have this wording in there, so he's asking for the wording to be changed for that.
Okay.
And legal is looking into that. Article 6, the only changes here is for the PEG access special revenue account. Now it was approved last year, so this year we're just adding it in there, and that Cable Advisory Committee has requested $25,000 for their revolving account. The other minor changes is changing the MART Transportation Fund from the COA Director to the Executive Admin, who's now in charge of that. And changes in the amounts of the tax title and the driveway temporary fund have gone up a little bit.
We'll have to be prepared to answer questions on this like we
We
do
will.
annually, because it's confusing.
Okay. And then Article 9 is not filled out yet because the budget hasn't been voted on. Article 11 is just the transfer to stabilization. Article 12 are your capital items, which is your sweeper, your police cruiser, and the Gmail, and also the trim painting for Quabbin. 13 is your fire truck.
Can I just ask a question? So Article 10, which we sort of skipped over, is the senior citizen tax, work-off tax abatement program?
Yes.
Which is included in the calculations with some of those other items on other pages, but separated here.
Yes, because it always has to be voted on annually. 13 is your fire engine. 14 is going to be the senior center. 15 is your DPW truck. And 16 is the town center.
Now,
65,000.
16 does not speak to borrowing,
Yeah, it
and
doesn't.
that's intentional, right?
So it's going to be a transfer from the...
Transfer from available funds. We can change the wording on that.
Well, I just want to be clear as to what we decided. I had thought before, you had mentioned that
Yeah.
it was going to speak to borrowing, but that's not what it
Did you
says.
guys?
Because I had it as a transfer to
Right,
stabilization.
and I thought, so I guess we could change it to whatever decision or recommendations that you guys have.
Do you want to leave Article 16 just to read transfer from available funds?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, 17 and 18 are CPA articles. 19 is a planning board article about the 47 Brigham Street. 20 is a pilot for a new solar farm on Williamsville Road. And 21 is your planning board marijuana article memorandum, which actually needs to be voted on tonight so the planning board can hold a hearing on that.
Yep.
Do we need to vote on that now? Or,
If you could vote at least on the marijuana article, I don't know if you want to keep the warrant open for until May 1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
so I'll make a motion to include the marijuana article on the town warrant.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, any comments from the planning board or anybody? Ben?
If you would just make the motion to send it back to the planning board to hold the hearings, that we can send it to town meeting, I think that's all we really need.
All right, amend it to send it back to the planning board so they can hold a hearing.
Second.
Any further
If you have
discussion?
any comments, fine, but I think we're all on the agreement with what we want to do with it, and so, but any comments you might want to make?
Okay, we'll get some time, so. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So on May 1st, I'll bring the warrant and the budget back to you again one final time, and that will be when
Close
you
it then.
vote, close it and vote on the budget.
Okay. With or without the school?
Well, hopefully we'll have something by then, but we'll have to vote without the school if we don't.
Okay.
Okay, so that was pretty quick. We went through everything. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Me too.
Okay, so if we can just jump over to 3 for a moment and go to 4, the DCR acquisition of land on Brigham Street and Cruz Road. So they want to see if you can waive the 120-day period.
Jamie, have any comments on that?
I haven't heard anything from him. So the only thing is that for both of these, I need you to read the first 2 paragraphs of each letter so that it's made out in public.
They're both the same.
One's for Cruz Road and one is for Brigham Street.
Can we vote on them at the same time?
You can, and then I need Jeff actually to sign them if you want to waive the 120-day period, because he's the clerk of the board.
Okay, so dear Select Board, in keeping with the provisions of 301 CMR 51.00, we would like to inform you that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting through its Department of Conservation and Recreation, has under consideration the acquisition of an interest in approximately 52.2 plus or minus acres of land or other property interest therein in the town of Hubbardston. The property is forested in its entirety and is currently used for open space. The proposed use for the property will be managed under the Quabbin Land Management Plan guidelines. DCR owned property abuts the property to the north and to the east. Enclosed is a locus map marked Exhibit A, which shows the property in which the DCR is interested. The applicable regulations require that an agency proposing to acquire property announce its intentions in public and local forum. To comply with this requirement, we ask that the board announce that the Commonwealth is considering this acquisition for the above stated purposes at its next regularly scheduled meeting. The board needs to take no formal action on its part. Please document the announcement on the enclosed form and return the form to DCR in the self-addressed stamped, or self-addressed envelope enclosed for your convenience. So that's that. Does anyone have any questions on this? We've seen a number of these over the years.
Yes.
Okay. And the second one? Dear Select Board, in keeping with the provisions of 301 CMR 51.00, we would like to inform you that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting through its Department of Conservation and Recreation, has under consideration the acquisition of an interest in approximately 30 plus or minus acres of land or other property interest therein in the town of Hubbardston. The property is currently managed woodland. The proposed use for the property will be land managed under the Quabbin Land Management Guidelines for protection of open space, including water supply protection. The property abuts DCR-owned land to the south, enclosed is a locus map marked Exhibit A, which shows the property in which DCR is interested. The applicable regulations require that an agency proposing to acquire property announce its intentions in public and local forum. To comply with this requirement, we ask that the board announce that the Commonwealth is considering this acquisition for the above stated purposes at its next regularly scheduled meeting. The board needs to take no formal action on its part. Please document the announcement on the enclosed form and return the form to DCR in the self-addressed envelope enclosed for your convenience. Anyone have any questions or comments? Sure.
Dan, I'm sorry, I'm not completely sure I heard what the letter said, but is this a piece of land in chapter that's being taken out and sold to DCR?
No, this was the one on Brigham Street. It's a Alto property.
Okay.
And then the other one is a Cruz Road. which I,
Were they buying conservation restrictions, is that what they're doing?
not that I know of, aware of.
Yeah, they're buying conservation.
Is that what they're doing? Okay.
They're both in chapter, but the state doesn't mean, you're not changing the use from chapter one, so it's, stays in the continuous use, and it stays in the ownership, so you're not gonna have to have.
Okay, fine. Like I said, I didn't quite hear what you said, so,
I read it pretty fast.
and I'm going deaf, there's no doubt about that either. Thank you.
Do you have what you want me to sign?
Yeah, let me,
So we have to
So you
vote
don't need a
do anything?
motion to waive the 120 day.
There is a form in here where you can waive the 120 days if you'd like.
And you're recommending that?
Jamie had wanted to not waive it in the past, but then after he came back and said he was fine with them.
I think he thought it was a different situation than.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
what it
this
actually
one,
is.
if you want to waive the 120 days, you would make a motion to sign that, and Dan would sign it. And then this form is just Jeff saying that you read it in a public hearing.
Okay.
Or a public meeting.
So Jeff can sign that without a motion.
No, you should make a motion for both of these.
I'll make a motion to have Jeff sign the letter that it was read
And for the 100.
and for the 120 day.
Okay, for both properties?
Yes.
Second the motion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Jeff, you're just gonna put your name here, and you're gonna sign it here and date it.
Okay.
We'll pass
On
it
both
down.
these?
Yeah, and then Dan, you're gonna put your name where after I date it and sign it there.
Randy, you're gonna contact one of Tucson Regional?
I will. She emailed me on Friday, I believe, so I'll let her know. All right, next item quickly is the amended contract for Cardinal Construction, who is the OPM project manager for the senior center.
Which item is that, Nick?
That's item 5. So this is already allocated monies from the original grant.
It is, it's just to
an
amend the...
extension of his contract. A lot of it, I think some of it has to do with the bidding services that we've gone through right now
It does.
for the building base. There's no new monies here, it's just extending his contract
Okay.
from what the original amount was authorized by us in the past.
Okay.
So I just need a motion by the board to allow Dan to sign
I
the
make
amended contract.
a motion for Dan to sign the amended contract with Cardinal Construction.
Second the motion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 3 original copies. You can sign those.
This is the second time we've done this.
Yes.
My signature's so embarrassing. It's gonna be in perpetuity.
Okay,
Should've
thank
been a
you.
doctor.
Okay, now for the planning board to present their earth removal bylaw annual report.
Come on up.
Come up.
There's 3. You have one?
No, I do not.
You want one?
Yes,
I'll share Vince.
thank you.
There's more out there for me. Out there,
For this.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Do you need more copies?
Yeah, if you have one copy, you can.
Okay.
Probably really easy. I didn't commit it to memory.
I don't entirely believe you.
You know,
I think you did.
Oh, yeah, no, let you read that. If you want to start, go ahead, because I can,
Should be here in a minute.
yep. It's for me.
Oh, okay. You good?
Thank you.
You ready?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. It's marked draft only because we have not had a chance to vote on it. We'll do that at our next meeting, so it'll probably change a little bit, but
Is it
not much.
tomorrow or next week?
I'm sorry?
Is your next meeting tomorrow or next
May
week?
3rd.
May 3rd, yeah. The Town of Hubbardston Planning Board is authorized by the Mass General Law and duly elected by the citizens of Hubbardston profoundly believe in its sworn duties and is committed to the goals of its citizens as stated in the town zoning bylaws, Article 1, General Provisions, Section 1.2, Purpose. Quote, "These zoning bylaws are adopted for the following purposes. A, to ensure realization of the general statement of purpose declared in Chapter 40A of the general laws. B, to protect the right of every resident of the town of Hubbardston to clean air and water, freedom from excessive and unnecessary noise or odor, and to the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities of the environment as declared in Article, is that 69?
49.
49.
It says 49, of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. C, to permit and ensure planned, orderly growth in the town of Hubbardston. D, to provide for compatible development and best use of the town's land resources. And E, to provide adequate housing and services to residents, visitors, employees in the town of Hubbardston." End quote. Additionally, the citizens have also entrusted the planning board with the regulation and enforcement of the earth removal bylaw, Article 19 in the town's general bylaws. While the earth removal bylaw, the bylaw project has been almost overwhelming at times, it has been extremely worthwhile for the town with many positive benefits. Without question, had the planning board not been diligent in its monitoring of the bylaw, a non-resident sand and gravel company would have filled its abandoned pit with contaminated soil from Boston. Stopping this activity and preventing it from occurring in town through the passing of a bylaw prohibiting the depositing of contaminated soil protected our aquifer, groundwater, and kept thousands of trucks off our already terrible roads. Additionally, in an attempt to curry favor with the town for this project, the landowner paid his back taxes, which had been delinquent for years and was worth many thousands of dollars to the town. Another gravel pit owner recently applied for a permit to extract gravel and reclaim their land. In order to apply, as required under the bylaw, all back taxes were paid. Both of these tax bills were very large and added substantially to our revenue stream. The efforts of the planning board to get gravel pit owners to comply with the bylaw and reclaim their lands is helping to reduce the liability the town has should a terrible tragedy occur in a pit where slopes are dangerous, holes numerous, and ATV riders common. As long as we are working to enforce the bylaw, we are doing our part to keep people safe and the town from being involved in litigation that might arise if we just ignore our responsibility. The planning board has had excellent results working with pit owners to reclaim their land. We have a long way to go, but for the most part, the landowners are working with us to ensure their business interests remain viable and acknowledge their responsibilities to their land and the best interests of the town. The planning board believes strongly that the citizens of Hubbardston support their bylaws, which they have adopted and defended over the years, and especially is subscribed to Section B of Article 1, noted above, which asserts, again I quote, "to protect the right of every resident of the town of Hubbardston to clean air and water, freedom from excessive and unnecessary noise or odor, and to the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities of the environment as declared in Article 19 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts."
49.
49.
49. Should have known that from the Super Bowl, shouldn't I? Tom Bracco's gonna take over the next section of this, but before he does, I want to point out 3 very prominent reclamation projects that we've had in town that have been very successful and I think very, very beneficial to us. First one is called the Fall Line Project. This was a project on Route 68 North, the old, some of us may remember the Andrews Turkey Farm. It was an absolutely decimated piece of land where the landowner had subcontracted it out to a person who was breaking rocks, polluting the Hubbardston Brook, and under the guise of agricultural...
Polluting silt-wise. Siltation into the brook, not
Right.
like hazardous contamination.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, erosion,
Yeah,
siltation,
okay.
right. Under the guise of agriculture, which was pierced and then brought in with the DEP so that it was totally reclaimed. It's now a very productive piece of land. It's now owned by a lady who trains her dogs up there, and if you haven't been up there, let me know. I'll be happy to take you up. It's absolutely a beautiful piece of land. And up until that point, it looked like a moonscape. Second one I'd point out to you is Madison Green. Many of us forget that at one time was a gravel pit. It's now a beautiful condominium project, and it's been developed under a planning board zoning bylaw that we developed, and it brought in last year $331,183.96 in tax revenue. By the way, it's a senior residential development. It's a private road. We do not maintain it. We have police, fire, and mostly ambulance service up there, and that's about it. There are no children in the schools. It is virtually all profit in terms of revenue to the town. And the third one is the Sun Edison project on Pitcherville Road, which again was a reclaimed gravel pit, and that is now a solar farm, which brings in $42,916 a year in pilot revenue to the town. So there is a definite purpose in our objective to try to get the gravel pits not only under permitting processes, but under reclamation, in hopes that it turns into a productive land base again for whatever purpose and whatever reason we use it for, as opposed to the wasteland that most of these gravel pits are right now.
Okay, thanks.
Tom?
I'll be brief, hopefully. The first one is the town pit. You guys, we talked about this before. The town has to develop, or the select board has to develop a transition plan, and we're anxiously awaiting that, so hopefully you can work on that in the next fiscal year.
Okay,
Some sort of a plan.
the bullet 2, can I just, currently the town does not have a permit to remove materials from the property.
You cannot legally remove materials from the property.
How would we be able to remove?
You would have to do a transition plan.
Okay, so pretty much what everybody else is having to do, all the other,
A little bit less than that, but you'd have to get an engineer, and you have to find out how much was there and how you're gonna do it.
so transition plan is the same as, generally is the same as a reclamation plan.
I'll defer to Vin more on that.
Well, excuse me, the purpose of a transition plan was not to put the town under the same type of, if you will, burden that maybe a reclamation plan may be for other pit owners, because at this point, we don't have that abusive type of situation with our pit. I mean, it's certainly been used, it's been neglected over the years, it has some situations that need to be attended to. But a transition plan, when we wrote the bylaw for the town, was to point out to most of the citizens as well as the gravel pit owners that we're not excluding the town, that we're not above them. The fact of the matter is, we have responsibilities as well as they do. So whatever transition plan comes about, whether it's, as Jamie Haddad has mentioned, the extraction for the sale of gravel, or covering it over for some use as a park or recreation facility, I think we need to start thinking about what we want to do with it. It's a valuable piece of property, and it's also a key piece of property that's the keystone to that entire situation up there off of Pitcherville Road. as it's the primary access to the entire backland where all the other gravel pits are located.
Okay.
So I think a transition plan is at least getting the town to acknowledge that we have this responsibility and to do something about it.
It would only make sense as well, because you want to know how much gravel there, what's there, and how you're going to do it. You don't want to just send the front-end loader up there and just hack it away.
Yeah, no, I think we've shown over the last few months, without a doubt, that we're, that's a, we have only so many possible revenue.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
that's definitely one
I
of
mean,
them.
we're just saying this is something you have to be aware of, and hopefully we can work on it. Just with that being said, just off topic, we just had a 2.5-hour meeting with the Marinellis up at their pit.
Right.
And we can talk about that in a minute, but
Yep.
what they were saying, the gate is broken, there's no lock on it anymore.
Lock and key.
Yeah.
And they asked,
Lock was stolen.
yeah, and they asked if you were gonna put another lock on it, because what we did witness up there was, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 yards of concrete.
Those are old,
Yeah,
though.
that's been there for a long time.
Yeah,
Well, they're starting to dump tires up there now. That was,
Those were there, too.
yeah.
Norman Brown was with us today, and he said it was brand new up there. There's some new big ones. Big ones.
There was some
Front-end loader tires.
in there.
Yeah, I remember seeing those earlier.
So we closed
Down in the hole.
We closed it and.
They've been
kinda
there
wrapped
for like
Yeah.
10
chain around
years.
it, but they were
No,
asking.
not those.
See, they're,
No,
they're.
different
New
ones.
ones.
Yeah, there's 2 piles.
Let's get a lock.
No, we are.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Okay.
the recycling gate was busted and the lock was stolen there, too.
Lock thief.
Weird.
But anyways, they're just
Yeah,
concerned,
second cent, but-
and they're, and again, it's a liability from the town's point of view. If the town can't secure that gate and someone dumps stuff on their property, then they're gonna say it's not their fault, it's your fault. So it's a big, I mean, I agree, you could argue with it all day, but do you really want to?
No, I don't wanna.
For a $25 lock.
Yeah.
Okay, so we understand the town pit. The Fletcher Trust in Ragged Hill is owned by the Fletcher family. Both of those, we sent out letters to most of these people. They responded. Mr. Fletcher came in. He talked about saying providing more documentation on the pit. As you know, I was here at your last board meeting and asked to have access to the records of the fire station and that whole fiasco. From one of those 3 boxes, we did find an original document of a court case that the town won against the Fletchers, and Joyce Green very correctly snatched it up and put it in the vault. So, I mean,
What was it related to, Tom?
it was related to the blasting,
Oh, in the
Yeah.
quarry.
but it was a big decision, and it cost the town probably $25,000. So
Okay.
it's really worth it to have the original decision.
And legal fees.
In legal fees, yes. The town has spent, tens of thousands of dollars on these gravel pits through the last several years.
I think that's gonna
So-
continue too, right?
No, I don't think it's gonna cost, I don't anticipate any, well,
We have had no threatening situations yet.
we've only had good meetings with people. I mean, the more records I can glean from the town records, the cheaper it will be.
Today's meeting actually made sense between everybody,
All right, so,
From a reclamation standpoint?
and more than one property.
just getting everyone together.
Are they
one of
going to
the-
be issued a partial permit or
They haven't, I think they're gonna,
Are you talking about the Marinellis?
Yes.
yeah.
We told them that we would entertain the proposition to issue a decision for the reclamation portion of their property. And then they have a whole other series of extractions that they want to commit. And it was a good meeting today. We worked out quite a few details, and we would be willing to write the decision for next month's meeting for the reclamation to get that off the ground, because they don't want to lose the opportunity to capture their short fiber material from their company they're buying it from, RMI, who has a demand for it, so they don't want to lose that. So we told them we would be happy to do that for the reclamation part of it, and then fast track the extraction permits that they want. And,
Right now, we're waiting on their engineer.
yeah.
Their engineer is the one that he has to get more information.
The one who came in and presented
Yeah,
here at the...
exactly. And he knows what he has to do. Bill Murray was there today, which was good.
Yeah.
And they were talking what they need to do, so
We just want to make them aware that when they do a removal, that they have a reclamation plan that's in parallel with it.
But is your,
As you're going, you're doing. As you're going, you're doing.
is it your plan for your decision to be written after the reclamation's complete? Or as the reclamation is underway?
I think the reclamation will be it'll be a two-tier process. I mean, this all comes from the people supplying the material.
Yep.
We're saying, we have to get rid of this, we have to get rid of this. And Marinelli's are saying, please, we have to do this.
Yep.
So we're saying, okay, we hear you, and we'll work with you. And then contacted the engineer and said, look, if you want to do that 8 acres that you originally were supposed to do in 2012 permit, we can work with you to do that while we're still working through the process. So it's not like, we're not gonna talk, please don't think we're not gonna talk to you until you're done. No, it's a continuation process. These permits and approving these gravel permits are a long process, several months, because there's so much information and documentation that has to be done.
Okay.
Just for an example, they had a gravel permit in 2012. Their person was removing gravel for a year, and we said, and this is basically the same plan that they gave us, but we said, how much of the gravel was removed in that year? Because that would affect the plan. They're taking this slope down they take it down almost 40 feet. So was 10 feet already removed? So if you take another 40 feet, now you're gonna be in the groundwater? We don't know. So those are the things, these are the questions that come up. So I think they're reasonable questions, and I didn't get the impression from the Marinelli family that we're being unreasonable. They just work.
We just don't want answers that we don't know.
Well, no, they're working on it. I mean,
They are working it, but I mean.
And we had conservation there also today.
Yeah,
And they're comfortable with the reclamation plan in that section. But you see, they applied under one permit application, and we told them we could break it out. We'll like put it into a phasing situation, so we'll get the reclamation, which is pretty much done. Their plan is done. We can get that going. Meanwhile, the other details on the extraction can be continued to be worked out, so.
But the conservation did come up within this reclamation area, it's within 200 feet of the Hubbardston Brook.
Yeah.
So now the conservation's saying, no, you have to look at this plan again. And not us, it was the plan.
I was at your meeting when that first came up too, so.
I know, but they were on, that's why we had the site visit. It was great the Conservation Commission was there, because they go, no, you can't, you have to do something different. And I don't know, I wasn't I don't know that much about that sort of thing.
Okay.
Okay, moving, I know you guys are pressed for time. So the Fletchers we're working on, I'd like to have access up to the fire department to look for some more files, if that's possible. Vin Ritchie remembers, and I remember seeing, there's 2 file cabinets up there full of planning board documents, which actually should be brought to the planning board office, because some of those documents are the subdivision plans in the town, and they should not be in that location.
Those are the big map cases. We had a big wooden one and either 1 or 2 metal ones. They were out here in the other room.
So, I don't know what you want to do. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but...
Well, let's keep on the gravel. We'll come back to the records later.
Pitcherville Sand and Gravel, that's Norman Brown. He was there today, and he and the Marinellis were talking, and they were talking with the engineer. So we're hopefully something will happen there. Mr. Brown received our letter that we sent to him on January 7th, and I did talk to him this week, and that's why he came to the meeting. And he said he's going to be coming to our meeting to present a plan for a possible solar farm as well as reclamation. So, and he's told me today that he thinks he has approval for getting into the grid, so, which is a good thing.
Yep.
Well, if you like solar farms, I guess. Rieta Ranch, we sent him a letter like I sent everyone else, I said. Mr. Kozol's attorney sent us a letter. We researched the files. We sent the letter to the town council via Rayanne, and we're waiting a letter back.
So nothing back?
Nothing yet.
No. And we asked him for his opinion and recommendation for going forward, correct?
So there was a question, what is, I guess, just to go on this item, just because it's applicable to some other things, as you know, that we're trying to figure out right now relative to the 250th. What is the main difference in opinion between the property owner and the planning board on I'm just asking,
We don't know. He has not come in to talk with us.
There's documentation through the files, there's documentations I provided at the town attorney through 1968 and he was given 2 cease and desist orders about gravel operations. So the question, the main question is, was there ever a gravel operation
That's what I
at the
think.
site?
That's what I was gonna get at.
There's tons of documentation. Does he have a permit? I can't actually hand him a permit, but there's tons of documentation. There's 27 pages of documentation saying that there was a gravel operation.
And whether or not that gravel operation was a removal operation, or whether it was to perform subgrade work for actual work that was done on
No, it was
site.
definitely, I have letters from W.J. Graves saying that they've been doing it. I have a letter from the town saying that they were buying gravel from him. So it was a gravel removal operation on and off for 35, 40 years.
Okay.
So the question is, the big question to the attorney is, does he have, and the question that Ken Brecker brought up, his attorney was, what's the meaning of existing? So that's why it's a town attorney.
Okay.
So, and he's gonna make that decision. I know what you're kinda getting at. Is there gonna be a decision anytime soon?
Doesn't sound like it.
I don't, not before. But I honestly don't, as far as all the other things he was talking about, he's never come to the planning board for anything.
Yeah.
He's never actually come to the planning board. I've talked to him on the phone, he says, I'm not saying anything to the planning board, you have to talk through our attorney, which is what we've done.
Okay.
I think the correct procedure is to go through town council.
Yeah, I don't even want to really talk about it anymore as far as,
Okay.
let it go through those channels, if that's all
Okay.
right.
The DCR owns some land in town that has gravel pits on it. We sent them a letter. I met with John Scannell at a Ware Watershed Advisory Council meeting, and he sent me a letter, if you want a copy of it, but we'll just put it in the file, stating that the local bylaws don't affect the state. They can do whatever they want. They're affected by local bylaws. But they did say that there was significant erosion possibilities and problems there, and they will be addressing those hopefully in the next year.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Boucher Trust, a letter was sent out to him. His attorney came to our meeting and asked for more information. That's very interesting, is that there's absolutely no information in any records anywhere that I can find, even mentioning Mr. Boucher. Well, it wouldn't be him, but the old Bates pit.
Have you contacted Bates?
I don't know who Bates is. Some people don't.
Still in Clinton, so we could probably do that. They're still around.
I do.
Okay, you know them? Okay. The Tystos, they were sent a letter. They attended our meeting on 3/1. They're working on a plan. That seems to be going pretty well. They're supposed to be coming to our meeting next week for an update. The Sharon property, which is the town bought, went through the Conservation Commission. They provided us all the documents. They did a spectacular job researching everything and giving us the information, so that basically goes in the file. And this is what goes back to what Vin says. If anyone ever had a problem with any of these properties that we've closed out, so we investigate it, they've done everything they're supposed to do, and the town's off the hook. Fall line, Vin's already kind of went about that. Phase 1 is complete. We gave the owner an extension, it's not written on here, but we gave him an extension until, I think, 2018. So we'll be revisiting with them, but they're very cooperative. The Marinelli property, we're working with the Marinellis. I think we beat that one up pretty good. Are there any more questions about that, the Marinellis? We're working with them as much as we can. The Hackler property off of Parsons Road, Jeff Hackler, I talked to him, he removes very little gravel, and he's not, the amount of gravel he's removing in his pit is such a size, he doesn't require an earth removal permit.
Back to Marinelli real quick. Do you, are they still marketing the property?
As far as we know, their realtor was,
Their broker was there, and he's concerned about the timing more than anything. And again, we addressed that with them. And in fact, I made the statement today that if they want to do a fast track, and they want to come in with a completed application, we'll dedicate an entire meeting just to them. If it takes 3 or 4 hours to go through the hearing, we'll do it. But more than anything, I personally would like to see the reclamation part done. That's where I think
The 8 acres.
the 8.9 acres. If we get that out of the way, we'll get a big chunk of it, and it just keeps getting better. And it sets a great precedent, and it makes a big difference. I don't know if has anybody been up there?
Yeah.
It's a tough piece of ground. It's a totally non-productive area that, if we could get it back to that situation where we've done with these others, the town will be much better off for it.
The town will also have to address the use of the road.
Pitcherville.
No, not, well, Pitcherville's is one.
Talking about the access
The
road?
access road, that's something that's not in our purview, that's up to you guys.
Yeah.
So once we kind of once it's moved down the road further before they can do anything, you guys have to decide whether you're not going to let them use that road or not.
Does the 8.9 acre reclamation plan require them, for them to execute it, do they have to remove material?
No. That was never, and they would never remove material ever again.
Okay, so
it's not affecting anything to do
So
with this.
there's no sticking point that has to do with any of that?
They're not related at all.
And how about removal of other material to fund the reclamation plan? Is that part of the?
Well, they haven't brought that up yet, so I don't know.
Okay.
It sounds to me like the material that will go in for the reclamation is not going to cost them anything.
Yeah,
And
that's what it sounded like to me,
The
too.
moving of the material around seems to be the biggest expense.
And that's-
Bulldozer or whatever.
They have a lot of them, they told us they had most of the material already there too. Because they were supposed to have done that 5 years ago.
Okay.
There's a couple other things in this project. Some of the neighbors were there today and they were very, very concerned about the 80 trucks a day going up and down their road. And then the other issue is that the Pitcherville Road is not in particularly good shape.
It won't be.
And it won't be after you put 80 trucks a day on it. So just keep in your mind, that's something that should be addressed as well, and to think about the people who live on the road. I'm basically just giving you what these people were saying to me today.
That was their concern.
Yeah. And
Be mine too.
It's 40 trucks a day, but going in,
Yeah.
don't know. Because they-
minimum of 40 to 80 trucks a day, and then in and out. So, come to our meeting on the 3rd. They're coming in again on the 3rd. Then
Yeah.
Continue the hearing.
continue the hearing.
I'll wait till 7:30, yeah, then I know, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
No, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're done. Any other questions?
No, appreciate it.
The issue about letting me in this, about the fire station, getting in to look at those records, or what do you want to do? You want me to contest it to the state? You want to just go, have Rayanne or someone go up there with me for an hour or two, or what do you
I
want?
think that's the best thing to do.
Alright.
I think it would be the very
We can't do
simplest.
5 hours at a time.
That's fine. I could do an hour. We may be able to do it in an hour.
There's really not much up there,
The
so-
plan then, Rayanne, I'll give you a call, we'll go up there for an hour, go through the box, not go through the box, we'll look further. If we find any records, we'll just put them on one side, and then we'll bring the records down to the town.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, I'm on vacation, so Monday will,
Well, I can't do it this week anyway, so.
alright.
And I'd like
Maybe I'll next week.
Vin to come too, because you know some
Well, I
of the...
was there last year, and I did find the aquifer protection mylars in the map cases that are up there, so hopefully they're still there, because they also would contain all our subdivisions, maps, and all our, quite a bit of stuff,
So not this week?
No,
The week
next
after.
week.
Yeah, middle of the week.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Whenever you're busy, I'm around most of the time.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, so
Can you just do quickly the wage authorizations, and then everything else I'll move to the next meeting?
Sure.
George Cannon is our new veterans agent, and Genevieve Daniels, she does special projects for the finance team. So if you could just approve both of those.
You need a motion for that?
I do.
And that is-
George is an appointment, and Genevieve is the wage authorization. So two separate ones.
motions. I move to accept the appointment as veterans agent for George Kincannon.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Also move for Genevieve Daniels, financial assistant, special projects wage authorization.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Make a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Yes,
Yes.
meeting's closed at 7:30.